Hi, first video in quite a bit of time. I've been away at the moment over the last 10 days, doing workshops and giving healings and that sort of thing. It's been absolutely brilliant, but chock-a-block, 10 days non-stop, it's pretty hectic. So I just want to run over the what's been going on in the GMLS world over the last week or so. I have prepared another video on the Malaysian flight. It's only a quick video, a quick update on what's going on that front. So today we're going to go through the earthquakes, we're going to go through the extreme weathers, look at some of the unusuals that are now becoming pretty much usual for this new world of extremes, and looking at the human behaviour in accordance to this energy. So we'll kick off with the sun, solar activity over the past week or so, work our way down through the earthquakes, which is quite a interesting week actually, because there's been an 8.2 that no one saw. I certainly didn't see it coming. I said things were going to calm down a bit, and they were calming down, and just to the 8.2 just kicked me straight in the teeth. But when we look at the whole thing going on, it actually becomes pretty clear. It's a case of trying to cover all the bases. And as I'm a one-man band, it ain't exactly easy, but we try our best. Anyway, let's get back to the universal news. Just as I started heading off down to the Mediterranean to give workshops and do a lot of healing, the sun kicked off a very timid X-flare, an X1 on the 28th of March. Keep an eye on that because we'll be coming back to that. Then we had a couple of M-flares in the beginning part of April, on the April the 2nd, just confirming a lot of the earthquake damage created by the X-flare earlier on in the end of March. But it wasn't just the X-flare. This is the other thing that was interesting on the sun that was going on. This is a map of the coronal fields, coronal whole with the solar fields. What you can see is here is this cross here, like that, is the Earth, sort of not magnetic connection, but it's facing Earth at that given point there. So this is the part of the sun at the moment that we're really sort of concerned about. We can see that we are starting to go down into a coronal hole, the red being negative and the green being positive, but it's being protected by these blue lines, these solar fields, which is actually protecting it. But as you can see here, as we go, if we start the clock off, we've got the date here. It's the 1st of April 2014 at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's Universal Time Central. So if we start this off, and you can see as we get closer to the time, there we go, as it crosses over, we cross over between the 1st of April and the 2nd of April. But this is another thing that's quite funny coming up here, as the Earth here comes to start bridging this almost like a hill of solar field. And if we just note the time here, we're on to April the 3rd. Here we come up through April the 3rd, coming up through the evening of April the 3rd, and we will be looking into this with the earthquakes. And what a week it was. Chile got absolutely hammered, man. On the 1st of April at 23:46 UTC time. What? Hang on a second. 23:46. Isn't that about bang on the time that we dropped into that coronal hole? Certainly was. But this is it. You should really understand coronal holes and solar flares. Solar flares is a pushing solar wind. Coronal holes, they're so large and so vast, they actually create almost like a vacuum within the vacuum, as it were, of a space. So as the Earth drops into the solar coronal hole, it sucks very slightly the Earth's magnetic fields, creating an interplanetary shock, basically. And but at the same time, we had the incoming solar flare. So not only was our magnetic field being sucked from behind, but it was also being pushed from behind, front. Sounds like the sort of movies that my kids shouldn't really be watching, that really. And it was this pulling and pushing of the solar wind that made this 8.2 jump out of South America and keep hammering South America for some time to come. The area was being hit by an earthquake roughly once every hour and a half until the 3rd of April, when things seemed to calm down for 4 hours. And bizarrely, that was exactly the same moment when the Earth's position was just crossing over the hill of the coronal fields, the blue lines that was actually protecting us from the coronal holes, before we dropped into a positive coronal hole and things started to really calm down from there. And then the sun just died off. Let's just get some stats and facts on these earthquakes before we go into the GMLS sort of energy conversion meaning, as it were. South America ran away with it with 62% or 66% of the earthquakes. And there was a total of 220 earthquakes in this period. If you take the Americas totally, they came out with 76% of the earthquakes, with the rest of the world just being left in its wake. It was an incredible week, really. So let's see what it actually does to the energy of this Earth, which has effects on us. So basically, in the Chilean earthquake, was a confirmation of the changing of the seasons from the southern to the northern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere lines drop right down to the lowest levels from the 21st of March, and in the northern hemisphere they increased their volumes by a third. In my last video I stated that the Ukraine situation would sort of fizzle out, but with the hitting of the earth chakra, the root chakra of the earth in Chile, that cranked everything back up into the fundamentalist sort of point of view in politics, and we can see that also as well with the result in France, with lots of National Front candidates getting to positions within councils in cities. Because of the ebb and flow of the system, this does actually present as a double-edged sword, really. Although the fundamentalists could be rising across the globe, and I would have thought you're going to have a little bit more sort of tension in the light blue line as it's rattling across Europe. I think this is also a very good time to actually put in place a lot of fundamental thinking of how we approach life and how we deal with things, rather than going down the same old roads that we all know about, and of basically war, finances, and religion. So, it is a very good time to start projects and start dealing with things and actually becoming a little bit more sort of concrete in life. There is one calming aspect to this, and that is if you can look above Australia into Asia, you can see there's quite a few earthquakes around that sort of area, the plexus solis of the Earth. But also if you look across to the UK and west of Europe, you can see that the same blue, dark, full blue line and the green line are also getting a bit of a tapping. And this should take a little bit more sort of steam out of the confusion that some people might be finding in some parts of the world. I think the Ukraine situation will die down after another little bit of a spout, which I think we've seen over the last few days, with people taking control over certain parts of Ukraine in support of Russia, trying to set up this duality sort of situation going on, just like the root chakra. And because the solar plexus has been split, it's helping to take a little bit wind out of this sales of this duality, and basically giving energy only towards ideas and projects that are actually concerned with a lot of people in mind, which is considerate of how we can actually develop a world that works in a different way. And it's up to us to do that, really. In true ebb and flow style, the routing of the northern hemisphere is basically of planting stuff and starting roots and getting that garden rocking and rolling. And in the southern hemisphere, it's also a case of rooting. It's a case of the trees dropping back their sap into their roots in order to prepare for the winter periods. So it's a case of, in the northern hemisphere, it's getting busy, getting out there and getting it done, and in the southern hemisphere, battening down and getting ready for a nice bit of winter. So here's a new feature that I'm going to be looking at in the future. It's the wind map with the GMLS map placed upon it, and already we can start seeing some very conflictual areas going on. We can start seeing a lot of crossing points, what lines are actually doing what, forcing the atmosphere to change its pressures according to the geomagnetic system that goes through our Earth, and then also comes from the outside through the atmosphere and comes to the center, to the surface of the Earth. So we can already see the conflict here between the yellow line and the blue line, with the pink line, the dashed pink line, starting to play a role and taking a bit of a power away from the blue line as it spins across from east to west. And we can see this perfectly in the curvature of the yellow line. And this is the same feature. Here we go again, the sucking down of the blue line, the spinning off of the dashed pink line. These are certain energies. It's a little bit like looking at the aura of the Earth in a way. You can start reading how she feels and what's the universal sort of energies that are coming through, and understanding that these lines actually can be translated into human activity. But to leave you with, let's just have a quick squiz of what's going on the sun. Whoa, man, that looks quiet. So basically, I don't think we'll be having that much in the way of storms, as I said in my video nearly 2 weeks ago about this sort of period. It was just the 8.2. It was a bit of the fly in the ointment. As mentioned before, this is really part of the solar shutdown. What we can see in the ebb and the flow and GMLS in a nutshell. Here we have the north and southern poles of the sun as it inverts itself. And we can see that over the past 30 years, this inversion has been gradually going down. A little bit like a carriage clock, really, as it spins around and comes to the end of its last cycle in the spin and then starts spinning in the other direction. Well, that's all part and parcel of the pole shift, really. And that's what's going through the Earth as well, if we're honest with ourselves. But if we don't have any serious solar activity, we could be looking at a little bit more compression of the Earth's atmosphere, and a little bit less in the way of earthquakes as well. So we have seen a gradual drop, certainly in the intensity of the earthquakes, a drop also in the volume. There's been 41 earthquakes today, and that's from 4 and above. There's 58% in the Americas, Australia, north of Australia into southern Asia. There's been 19% up through Japan and Russia. There's up to 17%, with 6% being elsewhere, which is quite a nice one, because one of them happened to hit in the south of France, in the Mediterranean, where I happen to be this week, doing a bit of a meditation on some old volcanoes, which is not too far, probably only around about 150k, 200k from that earthquake. So the root chakra has been stealing the show again. So it's still time to get involved and get stuck in. Just realise that it's the little things that count. It's cutting the Lord and meditating your way through it. It's the possibilities what life can bring us is what it's all about. And now is the time to actually plant that seed of that thought and start nurturing it and building upon it. Because if we don't get it together, you know, it's just going to turn into a bit of a soup, man. And that's the social side of things, you know, because the energy's not there for us to push us through. We've got to do it ourselves. But anyway, I'm going to put a Malaysian air flight thing update coming up. I'll be doing my weekly report on Friday, so in the meantime, love from me to you and your crew.